Hello, everyone, and welcome back to our top eight match. Top 16 is done, dusted. We're moving on to top eight, and here we've got Ben on Law versus Lamb on Whitebeard. So, Whitebeard's been the boogeyman for quite a while now since its introduction. We've seen a couple of nerfs to the deck, but still finding its place within the top cut. As always, I'm joined here by Braydon. Now, Braydon, you've spent a fair bit of time on Law, even took it to a first place in a regional. What are your thoughts on this matchup?
Look, very interesting. Obviously, Law, you're trying to set up the combo, shambling, and maintain consistent pressure, while obviously always presenting a healthy amount of blockers to stay safe. Have them try and deal with your board, meanwhile clearing up theirs and just pecking away at that. I think the longer the game goes, you're going to see Law kind of start to take more control. The Whitebeard is looking to just get some peck damage in, set up a board state, and then just overwhelm the Law here. I think you're going to have to put it, obviously, I think Ben will have the advantage here. Very well versed in what he's trying to do. And we're seeing him start off his turn one with a Darn, meanwhile an Ezo Searcher on the side of Lamb here.
Yeah, and you say that Law's probably a bit more favoured in this matchup. What do you think are some key cards that will gain a lot of advantage for Ben?
Well, shifting obviously to the new versions of Law we're seeing now, they're transitioning a little bit back to kind of almost Strawbeard, and still setting up obviously with aces and stuff like that. I think the key card that Ben needs to see is going to be his either Basil Hawkins to maintain board control, or it's going to be the starter Luffy if he runs it to try and get through any late game blockers that Lamb may have out there. We've seen Lamb opt to just go straight into a 6k and a 5k swing, try and pressure the Law player earlier, either get two cards out of his hand or get him down to 2 life or a mixture of the two. So definitely an aggressive start from Lamb here. Let's see if he can keep the pressure up, maybe with some rush cards, or if he's going to take a turn or two off to set up some big threats and see how Ben responds.
Yeah, and we see Ben just doing his best to maintain that board pressure, slowly kind of establish his board. He's not too concerned about going down to 2 life at this point in the game. Still sitting on 3, but no blockers on the field. He's just really trying to focus on getting that board set up and then starting to use his leader effect.
Yep, absolutely. We've seen the 5 cost Marco come down now. Ben opting to go second here to make Lamb take that early life on turn one without obviously getting any attacks off. But now we see the downside of that with an on curve Marco that realistically is probably going to hang around on that side of the board. But we'll see how Ben now chooses to address this, if he can get a quick Basil Hawkins out to put more pressure on that Marco. I believe he's down to 2 life quite early on as well. We know he does have a chopper to maintain some blocker presence, but let's see how he stacks this now and if he can set up for even possibly a shambles this turn.
Yeah, Whitebeard pirates in general just have such good ways to remove kind of these low cost cards, and can really mitigate against blockers. But we do see the leader effect come into play here. We saw the Atama neg onto the Marco and then the Law coming down, playing another Rush Sorrow and just a pass there. So he was able to set up 2 blockers in that turn. But now he's got a pretty well established board with the 2 Rush Sorrow and the blocker Law set up.
The Law good in the Whitebeard matchup because it doesn't match up as well against the leader. Obviously, Newgate being a base 6k and that Marco being 6k as well. But he can just get a block out and a 1k, which is something worth noting. He is setting up for a big turn 4 by the looks of it. Just 1 Don required there and opting to take the life. Now, one thing I just scoped down in Ben's hand. This is a somewhat different build of Law that we don't see much in Oceania, especially not in the set 2 and 3 days. I saw an alternate art 8-cost Eustace Kid.
Yeah, something we haven't seen probably since about set 1, I would say. We really saw that card be prevalent in Law, but as we kind of got into set 2, we saw that drop off. But yeah, we do see that 8-cost kid. Do you think that there will be a turn where you can establish that safely with just the 1 blocker on the field at the moment?
Well, we could potentially see him establish it now. I don't think he's in a position where he can. We see the 7-cost Russia comes down. Now it looks like we're going to try and pressure it. Why go for leader? Wait for him to get to 0 life before we peck into it. He's using the Otama neg here onto the ace to try and get it down. I think we'll see the 8-cost potentially next turn now that he has started to clear the board. I'm interested to see if he's going at life here or if he's going into Marco. Perhaps try and get some of those late game event cards out when pushing for game. And can't tell. Oh, that's a sorry. That's
It
a
did
starter, Frankie.
seem that he was. Yeah, it did seem like he was signaling towards the Marco. Yeah, so he's definitely just trying to dwindle down some of these event cards in hand. We see the shambles there, opting
And
for
there's
the
the
starter
restand.
law. Yep, getting another
Now,
8k swing in here.
absolutely. And now Lambs is completely on the back foot. He's either going to have to drain his hand. I think going after the Marco here is the right call, even only at 1 life. He's gone quite aggressive, quite fast. Doesn't have a wide board, and I think that Ben can absolutely control it here. The restand law, the blocker law, a beautiful combination of cards, and still 1 Don chilling out there. Now, he's elected to pass, which I think is the right call. Keep that blocker up just in case there is a surprise couple of rush characters to threaten game here. But let's see how Lamb approaches this turn, because 2 Zorros as massive threats there. He's got a block. He's got another restand lord to deal with. It's almost as if the lack of blockers, he has to just try and go for game here. Not game here, but try and go for game over this turn and maybe even next turn. But I don't think Lamb's going to get another 2 turns here.
Yeah, and I think Ben's just waiting for that situation, the perfect time to strike. If he can get some cards out of hand here by attacking into the ace and the Marco, then that'll set up an easier kill turn later on in the game, as opposed to dealing the pressure now and leaving that board to just kind of go in for game. So he's done really well. Now it's just about finding the best sequence. When is the best time to block? When's the best time to commit the cards from hand to prevent going down to 0 life? But we do see the 7k Marco swing.
And he opts
And looks
to
like Ben's
take
gonna
it.
opt to go down to 0. Yeah, he's not afraid of any rush characters coming down, and just bypassing blockers that we've seen with like the starter deck Luffy. He's comfortable going down to 0 with the cards that he has in hand.
And he had the choice there of using the guard point to combo out of that, then potentially having the law block for the leader. But let's just see how he plays out these rest of this turn now, Lamb, because I think even he was probably a little bit taken aback with Ben taking that life there, even with the 1 Don active. Now we see a starter Luffy here, 9 Don. This could be just slam down, swing for 10. But then obviously you
we'll see
risk
whether Lamb.
I was going to say you risk a pretty big crackback here. I don't think that's the play, but we'll see how much Don he chooses to invest into this starter Luffy. He'll start with a 6k swing. Probably should have done that first, just so they didn't have the information of the starter. Well, I mean, he revealed the starter Luffy off the Nami anyway, but to play it and swing,
Yeah, he might even.
there.
Yeah, he might opt to just leave the Luffy inactive for the next turn, where he can pretty much put the question on Ben here: is, do you have a way to remove this Luffy? Or do you have a way to kill me? Otherwise, I'm just putting all Don directly onto that Luffy, and I'll go for game. So, really putting the question on Ben here. Can he find a way out?
Exactly. And we start with a 6k swing. Probably a sign there that he doesn't have another restand law to kind of shamble into. He is still at 1 life, though, which is worth noting. So he's got to find a way to kind of deal that 1 life. And here we go. We see the 8-cost kid come down. Now, this could just be a rest. Is he playing anything? No, he's just going to pass that. So I actually quite like that turn from Ben. There's no point investing a huge amount there with him at 1 life, because if you overextend with your attacks, even pecking away, he'll just happily take it. And then he's more than likely going to survive, any big attack there, particularly with I think it's Fosso blocker. I think his name is the 2-cost 2k from the Whitebeard Pirates. Now he's forced to go into this, and Whitebeard typically, outside of potentially Otama, which a lot of lists have started kind of dropping for more of the Straw Hat 2Ks, he's got no way to neg down this kid. He cannot overcommit an attack because there is a blocker law standing guard there, and there is 1 Don active. So Lamb in an incredibly difficult position here, where he almost needs to take a turn off. Oh, we do see the Otama, actually. I spoke too soon. So Lamb does have and
He
Otama
does
at
have
the
an ace
forefront
as
there.
well.
He does have the ace. How could I forget that too? So there's multiple plans of attack he could take here. Whether it start with Otama and then slam an ace and just try and bait out those blockers, or do you don up the starter Luffy, sneak past the 6 cost, and take care of the kid? But it just feels like his Lamb has to have in the back of his mind, he has to deal with 2 Zoros that are going to be 6Ks. He's going to have to deal with the
Yep.
restand law as well, and he has to find that delicate balance, because realistically, to clear the kid and win this turn is probably off the cards with the size of Ben's hand that he's got here, particularly representing 1 Don active.
Yeah, and this is definitely the pivotal turn here that can really make or break Lamb's position. Whether he can find a way to deal with the kid successfully and still keep enough cards up to defend the following turn. And like you said, there probably isn't a situation where he can remove kid and go for game, but if he can find the right combination to dwindle Ben's hand and potentially remove this kid and still have enough gas to live through the following turn.
Definitely. And Lamb
But
still
yeah, we
does have
see the
that blocker.
ACOS kid providing, yeah, and ACOS kid providing a lot of value for Ben here, just simply by buying another turn almost, and allowing Lamb to go down to that 0 life. With the board that he has established, he can find a way to close out the game on his next turn. It's not really about locking Lamb out with this ACOS kid. It's just about preventing him that one extra turn. And we see the Otama into the ace,
That's
negging it
massive.
down
So
to what would be now 4K,
I think 3K, because the
and
Otama negged it to
easily
6, and now
finds a
the
way.
ace.
Yeah.
So it's, yeah, easily cleared. But now, like we
Yep.
said earlier, can he go for game? And there we have a radical beam. Absolutely massive. We still have the blocker active, and now it looks like we're just going to get the new gate into the red zone here. Bit of danger here for Lamb. He didn't hold up the Don representing anything. Now, it could, whether you
Hmm.
want to bluff that against Ben is another story. But he passes with, takes the last life, so he's now at 4 cards in hand.
Four
We
cards
have
in hand. Yep.
2 1Ks. I think there was a 2K in there. We'll find out very soon. Now, this swing for 8, I think surely is
Yep.
going to draw out the blocker.
Looks like he's
Well, he's
going
got a
to opt to
Jozu, though.
use the two 2Ks. Yep.
Perfect. Maybe waiting
Jozu
for...
and a Makino.
absolutely. Looks like he's just waiting for a bigger attack. We've got another 8K swing here. We've got another
Yep.
2K and a 1K as well, so we can easily out-combo that. But we're staring
Yeah, and
down...
I think he might have a 2K and two 1Ks in hand. So I think this will cost him his whole hand, which will pretty much, yeah, yep,
and then this should do
that's
it
it.
with a 9,000 swing. He can only get up to... oh, no. Is that enough?
I think it's 8. No, I think he could only get
No,
to
no.
8.
You sure about... I think he could get to... was that 2 cards in hand or 3?
Oh yeah, so he would be,
I couldn't
yeah,
quite
perhaps
make
one
that
of those
out.
was dead.
Luckily, we've got our handy cameraman Trent there who's going to clarify it for us. I do think Ben got the win, and he did there. I think he could only either match or was maybe 2K short. But wow, what a game by Ben. Just
Yeah,
hitting that magic number of 8, either forcing, knowing that there weren't any event cards, knowing he's going to force 2 cards out at a time, and just like an unopportune time for a block. They're all even, so it doesn't matter which one you block. I've done the math. We're going to kind of do it this way. Didn't even need to leave a shambles up. Didn't represent like a restand law, even though he obviously didn't have the 5 bodies. Just straight away knew that he could get through there. So that kid forcing the hand of Lamb, playing down the ace, as well as the Otama, and only just falling short. But what a cracker of a game! What do you think's going through Lamb's head right now, Ryan? How does he come back from this?
yeah. I think it's just about kind of establishing a board big enough that you can push through some of these blockers. Lamb doesn't want to get in a position where um, he's trying to deal with Ben's board and not dealing the live, because Law just has so many 1Ks and 1 costs that it can simply set up a board again really easily. So it's just about putting the pressure on as early as possible. And Lamb was in a really good position before that ACOS kid came down, but that trick's out of the bag now. Lamb is aware of the ACOS kid and will probably be able to adjust and set up a little bit better to deal with that as well.
Exactly. And I really like that move from Ben as well. Having it be really a bullet sponge, particularly with one Don open and having the guard point. Not sure if he had the rad beam at that point, but he definitely had a guard point there. So could easily block any large attack and combo out of any kind of smaller attack. And if he did, which he ended up doing, dropping the ace and the Otama, still having it absorb all of that, but then Lamb would have no way to kill Ben through such a large hand as Law often gets, particularly when he didn't have to commit any of his early event cards or anything like that. Anyway, we're on to the start of next game. We've got Ben taking a 1-0 lead, and he did go on a mulligan. Lamb has opted to go second here. So let's see what Ben goes with. And we start with a chopper. So missing that Nami Searcher, no doubt.
Yeah, but Lamb is able to find his, and yeah, we'll get his top 5 search. Generally, there's a lot of the defensive cards that are Straw Hat within the deck outside of the starter Luffy. A lot of the event cards and a lot of the 2K counters that are Straw Hat within the Whitebeard list generally are a bit more defensive.
Yeah. Oh, most definitely. And starting with a blocker isn't terrible here. Like, Lamb's only way to get rid of it really is the Marco, which he does play 4 copies of. Obviously, negging with ace isn't going to do a huge amount here. But what a start here from Lamb with Strawbeard. We have the Nami into the Izo, just kind of sculpting his hand and probably setting up for something pretty big here.
Yeah, and it looks like that Izo found a Whitebeard and Ace, and I think there was a starter Luffy in there as well. So, cards that you're probably not running a lot of copies of, especially with Whitebeard being limited to one. But if you're only running 1 or 2 copies of that starter Luffy, to be able to, well, be forced to put it to the bottom is quite a shame. Especially we saw that provide a lot of value or potentially provide a lot of value in game one, to now know that it's at the bottom of the deck. But we do see the Whitebeard obviously going to hand, and just how powerful that card is, being forced to be limited down to 1 really shows just how strong that character is.
That's it. And of course, we've seen the kind of meta adjust to new kind of Whitebeard builds ever since the restriction on the 4-cost Marco, the Rad Beam, as well as that 9-cost. And now we are seeing this new evolution of the Whitebeard deck that is going to be quite aggressive here. And straight away,
Yeah,
we
and
get the
another
Marco.
Luffy. Another Luffy put to the bottom again. So that's 2 now that we've seen put to the bottom 10 cards now.
Absolutely.
And I
And
couldn't imagine these Whitebeard lists running more than 2 copies.
oh, 100%. So generally they stick at, because it's a tricky balance. You obviously want a lot of combo in the deck, but cards like your Ace, your Whitebeard, your starter Luffy do not have that combo and just make it incredibly difficult. I want to talk about an interesting point here. So Ben, full well, with Lamb revealing the Marco there, knows there's a 5-cost Marco, realistically, coming next turn.
Mhm.
Opts to just slam down a Nami. He probably did the math and thought if he has 2 1-costs, we see a Jewelry Bonnie, but he can't activate and use. Does he want to start shambling this turn? I'm a bit confused why he didn't use that 1-cost blocker when it was such a juicy target for that Marco. That's probably going to come down from Lamb next turn. He will have 6 Don next turn, so let's just see how this plays out. Ben thinking about how he's going to sculpt this board. I don't think he's in a shambling position this turn, right?
Yeah, we see a lot of 2-cost characters in hand. We've obviously seen the 1-cost Bonnie in there, but I haven't seen another 1-cost character that would allow him to get to 5 and still have Don available to shambles. And yeah,
Absolutely.
we looks like we see the curly, the top 5. So that chopper can very easily get picked off by the Marco if Lamb decides to play it, which just opens the board up to be able to attack directly into lead.
Absolutely. And
We
here
see a
opting to
6k swing.
opting to go in for leader here, playing down the Nami and setting up for a big shambles next turn by the looks of it. Look, he's seen a lot more of the 1-cost blockers. We only saw, I think, 1 chopper last game, and now we're seeing these choppers come out in droves. We'll see what he takes here, though. It did see a guard point in there as well, and he opts for the guard point instead, probably knowing there's more Marcos to come. And as you said earlier, he did take that 9-cost Whitebeard, didn't he?
Yeah, that was taken off the first ESO search. So on a bit of a clock here, that that character will obviously put a lot of pressure onto Ben's field later on once it hits the field. And Lamb still looks like he might still be on 4 life there. So we're getting into that higher Don turn, and Lamb still has a pretty reasonable amount of life, only really taking it off his own effect. Ben hasn't been able to push any extra damage in just yet. And we see the Thatch come down, so really setting up a very powerful field. And Thatch, as in combination with the Whitebeard, are really going to be able to put pressure on an ACOS kid if Ben decides to play it.
Makes me wonder if he doesn't have a huge amount of event cards land. Like I think slamming the Marco there, taking care of Chopper or Dadan, just a searcher,
Mhm.
to me kind of felt right. Here we see an 8k swing, so it feels to me like there's a restand law coming. The Nami picks it up, down comes the restand law, and in comes that Zorro for 8k again. So
Yep.
really stepping up that clock and showing that if he tries to build a board next turn, that it's not going to go down too well.
Yep, and we will see the counter out on this one, um, not wanting to take any more life down, and it looks like Lamb should be on 8 Don, I believe.
Yep, he's went second. He'd be on 8 Don now,
Yeah,
so
yeah. So
he
still one turn off from his Whitebeard, and now we're going to see the value of that Marco to remove the blocker, and now Thatch will be able to attack comfortably into this Zorro if he chooses to do so, or if Lamb will continue to put pressure onto Ben's life.
see revealing the guard point. He's got to be careful here. You can't overcommit obviously too much. You still want to try and get 2 cards out. It'll be 5 to 8, so a guard point won't um cover it. But I mean, I still feel you got to go for life here. And we see a 2k combo out, either at Zorro, at life, we'll find out. No, is that life? So he's just ignoring that Zorro.
Yep,
His hand's probably quite large, that clearing the
yep.
board won't really have too much of an impact. And we know we've got that threat in the restand laws already on board. So he's probably aware of that. Goes down to 1 life. Now let's see if he... It was at this point last game that Ben took a turn off and established the Eustace kid. Now, he's Bonnie spinning. He's going to be looking for the probably... Okay, he's looking at a restand law. He was either going to look for the kid, maybe play it next turn, or maybe just looking for ways to close it out. If he has the Luffy here, a really good play would be just to obviously drop it, not swing, and then next turn just setting up for the big kill turn. But we've got a 6k swing coming in leader here. Let's see if he takes or if he's going to combo out.
Yeah, and we have seen the ACOS kid in hand for Ben since turn 1, so he does have that option available. But we see the Red Hawk come down to remove the Bonnie, so that will force Ben to have to commit another character onto the field if he wants to shambles, which, it's not a big deal. Ben obviously has a lot of Don available, and there's a lot of one-cost characters, so he can still easily get there. But it is just one more Don that he has to commit to get those 5 characters onto the field.
Exactly, and that's what you're seeing here. He's just going through, rerunning the math, and this is why it's good never to overcommit that Don early, not just in terms of placing it, but forming a one-track play. And this is the beauty of this lore deck, and the lines that they can take. And it looks like he's thinking of just a cheeky little 6,000 power swing, but we'll wait and see. He does also have that one-cost chopper. That is a very easy rebuild and potentially some insurance for next turn if he does want to swing with this board. But that's the difficult decision he's making now. What do we see here? Is he
Yeah, just
playing?
mapping out
I think he's
the
just mapping out
the
with
Don that
his
he has
Don.
available before he commits. Yeah, before he reveals the card, he's just trying to see what the actual plan will look like and how much Don he'll have available. Now Ben needs to turn that focus a little bit more towards the defensive side of things as well, because we've got some big characters on Lamb's side that can close out the game. So he's got to teeter on that kind of balance between putting enough pressure to get cards out of Lamb's hand, but also keeping enough Don and having enough blockers on the field to protect himself as well.
Absolutely. And that's kind of what we're seeing here. I'm really interested to see what his shambling turn is going to be. He hasn't gone big on any of his characters. He's not targeting the Thatch. He's choosing to ignore that. Now he's just thinking how he's going to map this turn out. What's he going to shamble into? Because I think we need to see a big setup here. Here we go. So Nami, is he going to go onto the restand law? He does.
Yeah, looks
Picks
like
it
it.
up.
Yep, and another
And now
6k.
And he's going to go that 6k, leaving 2 Don open. We still know he obviously has the guard point. I think that's the only card he does know. I think he does either have a second... I
And
think
the
he does have a
Whitebeard.
second event. Yeah, we do know about the Whitebeard next turn, don't we? So going into this one would have been interesting. I thought for sure keeping that restand law, unless he's got another one, keeping that restand law in hand, donning up either keeping a Zorro or the Trafalgar Law back and being able to go, say, 2 12k swings or something very, very equivalent. We're going to start off with an 8k swing. I think he's pointing at leader. So he opts to take that last damage there. And let's see if we have... 2 Don is always so tough. Does Lamb want to test him? He knows there's a guard point. He knows that having a Rush Luffy being able to ignore the chopper probably isn't going to be good enough. And I don't think you don up the searches. I just think Ben's hand is far too big that those little searches won't be able to close out the game here, right?
Yeah, and he's probably gone through his mind whether he should play the Whitebeard, whether he's got enough value to play it, and whether Ben will be able to push through that 8k leader, even if he does decide to play it. Obviously, there's the 2 6ks on the field, the 2 5ks between the leader and the character Zorro. So there is some characters that can attempt to push damage. It will cost a lot of Don, but whether Lamb has the cards in hand to defend through that as well.
And we've just seen a 6k swing go into leader here, and he's opted to use the 2 1ks, not use an event card. Now that has to signal that there is not a single 2k in Ben's hand at the moment, but that 2 Don, you can't just put it, like, split it between a few different cards, or, maybe even a Jozu and Rush. I don't know. The possibilities have to be swirling right now for Lamb, but he's just got to be absolutely critical of how he splits this Don in this situation.
Yeah, we see 5 cards in hand for Ben.
And here comes
and we're going to see the Whitebeard.
Right,
He's going to stick to the game plan. He's got an 8k leader swing coming in. This will force most likely an event card to come out.
Probably,
but
surely
sticking to the game plan. Yeah, well, you don't want to get the... he's comfortable leaving the chopper on the field. It is going to easily be picked off by the Whitebeard the following turn.
I don't think he's surviving a Whitebeard swing next turn, which is why he may have just kept it to use for some shambling targets. Just trying to, sculpt out his turn from here. 8k is just such a hard one to come back from, particularly with Lamb leaving 1 Don open as well. Now, if he does have that restand law, I think he's in just an incredible position here. Don up your Trafalgar character and just swing. We do see him lay the hand face down as a count, so it looks like 4 cards in hand. Going after the Marco.
Yeah, just to get a test of the waters, see what Lamb's going to do, whether he wants to commit a card to protect it. But in this position, with everything still being so open, you're happy to let that Marco go.
And Lamb just not saving that in the slightest. I think he's still wary that he could just completely fold here. It's worth noting as well, Lamb did not take that last life, so I think Ben does have to go into kind of damage control here, trying to clear... He did have the restand law as well, which is very, very interesting. That's 2... If you put the 2 8 Don onto that, that's 14k. Lamb would have had to have survived 2 14k swings.
Which is not impossible if you do have a guard point or a radical beam in hand.
Absolutely, and he's representing that Don now, and honestly, I think that's what Ben's thinking about right now. I think the 6k, doesn't matter. It's not going to swing at leader. It can't draw a card out of his hand because he's 8k. Let's just go into that Marco. Let's try and draw some cards out of his hand. Being a game up, he has to now consider whether he thinks he can survive the onslaught that's due to come to him now. Not just the Thatch, but obviously the Whitebeard can take care of that chopper blocker. And that's why he didn't block. I think he kind of committed to, I think I'm just going to go 2 14,000 power swings with one of my Trafalgar Laws into your leader. And if you can out-combo that, congratulations. And that's exactly what we're seeing.
Yeah.
So here comes the first. He happily takes it. And here comes the shamble, commit. Let's do the count here, ladies and gentlemen.
See the radical beam.
Well, we've got the rad beam, so we're at 10.
12.
12, 13.
He's at 8k still.
Oh, he's got it. Did he go...
No, Whitebeard's still at 8k, so that would have got him to 12. And
12,
then
yeah,
the
you're right,
Atama to
sorry,
14 and then
13.
Nami to 15.
Absolutely. So Ben there kind of a bit out of luck. Like, could you just imagine if that Whitebeard was at 4 and just the power on display there? But Lamb, well done. Brilliant patience there. Knowing that the 8K was probably going to be too hard to kind of peck away at, forcing the double 14K swing. And I'm sure that math would have been going around in his head. He knew that Ben would have been setting up with that restand Law, and by playing it out, he knew he probably had another one, because it's generally how Law gets that win, just with either a triple swing with Basil Hawkins through a blocker, or getting it onto a restand Luffy and getting those two massive swings on. It comes down to the argument now, as Ben, would you have... I think he kind of committed to that turn. He could have blocked the Thatch instead of taking the last life, but then would one life have been enough to survive? Look, probably not, even with the
Yeah,
event
that's the
card. So,
question. Yeah.
absolutely.
He had
So, I
about
don't know.
5 cards in hand.
I don't think it would have been enough. Not seeing those blocker laws are just absolutely crucial. Like, I remember, this is going back when I played Law in that treasure cup, my hardest game all day was actually against Whitebeard, where I'd mathed it out to, okay, I got pretty lucky that game. I saw 3 of my blocker laws, and it got to a point where I knew I was probably going to win next turn. I just had to survive this turn. And I was going through the math, like, what could actually kill me here? And it was actually that combo of, say, a starter Luffy completely donned up, and I had to just throw away multiple blocker laws to 6k attacks, because if he had it, I couldn't combo out. Sure enough, he did, and I managed to get over it by 1k and managed to just swing back on the crackback because he had no unrested Don. So great showing there from Lamb, going through the math, no doubt, of the worst possible situation and realizing he could absolutely commit it. Third game, Ben gets to choose. So we've got our first game 3 here, and Lamb getting that Whitebeard off the Searcher, now going first. Let's see how he responds, Ryan.
Yeah, so picks up the ace. So we didn't see the ace come down in game 2. We didn't necessarily need to play it, or didn't really see it. But Ben setting up with the 2 chopper here, and just gonna take the life as we saw he did in game 1 and 2. He's very comfortable to get those cards in hand. He's not too worried early on. He's obviously got the blocks available for later on, and it's interesting that he opts to take those life almost immediately. He doesn't even consider blocking.
Well, that's it. Well, Law is basically like, as I said earlier, a combo deck that can take multiple lines, and if you don't have as many cards in your hand, those lines become extremely limited. I definitely don't blame him for the path he's taken here. Dadan, it looks, he's played the Dadan. I didn't see what he grabbed. And now it looks like he's just going through the motions, crunching the math. Does he put a Don onto the Trafalgar Law? Does he invest 2 1 cost or maybe another 2 cost into the board? He's going to opt to clear the ISO just in case he doesn't have anything for next turn, and instead slams down that other Dadan. Again, just trying to find some options, maybe a Nami or just another 2k counter. He shuffled that Nami to the front, so it looks like the prime candidate here.
Yeah, and he's really set up a good board to start using his leader effect on the following turn. And with Lamb only going to 5 Don, his options are still a little bit limited in what he can do. He does have the ability to remove one of these characters with the Marco, which we do see come down. So removes a blocker and gets a card out of hand from Ben as well.
Absolutely.
But still easily able to set up those 5 characters again this turn. He's got plenty of Don. He's got plenty of low-cost characters to re-establish and start using his leader effect to get some 6k and 5k bodies onto the field.
Exactly, and here, as you can see, he's already back to 4 characters. He still has 5 Don remaining, so he's got a bit of Don to play with, and we see the Nami there as well. So he knows he can get a decent 6k swing in here. Obviously, there was no Don active for the Lamb player, so there was no Red Hawk coming out. Here he's going to look for the blocker law, no doubt. I think he's kind of forced to take a it looks like one of the main targets there was the restand, so taking that. Bounce
he does have a blocker law in hand.
Oh, he does. Good.
Okay,
I missed that.
Yep.
Perfect.
And gets another search off the Nami.
Exactly. And what I like about the law into Whitebeard, you can kind of just play the long game, peck away for 6k, but honestly, like, just wait till they're at 0 and then set up your 2 alpha swings like we saw Ben try to do last turn. Ultimately, Lamb had enough event cards to counter out of that. And yeah, we saw Lamb take game two because of that. And here, just establishing, he's got the double to dance, so the searchers won't be able to peck away. He's got the one blocker there. Now that he's got a good, decent setup, I have a feeling we'll see the chopper going under the bus here. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's probably a decent time to start using it as well. But Ben has always just been comfortable with taking that life early on, so he's even now still opting to just use the cards from hand to prevent this damage instead of opting to use the block. Um, yeah, he's really valuing keeping the 5 characters on the field and having full access to all of his Don without having to commit cards to get back up to 5.
Absolutely.
And we saw
And we
the
could
one
even
of
see a.
in
Oh, you go, sorry, mate.
yeah, I was just gonna say we saw the one of from Lamb really provide a lot of value in that game too. That Whitebeard was really what was able to keep him alive just by keeping the leader at 8k
Yeah.
was just enough to get through those 2
Yep.
swings.
And we saw, yeah, like you said, we saw it exactly. He didn't have to take that last life. Being base 8k just made it easier for the Rad Beam and the 2ks to get him kind of over that line. And now we've got a Nami. Are we going to see... He went... Yep, there we go, and the Thatch. So now he's got some threats on the board. Let's see how Ben responds to this. He draws the Capone, so he's got a couple of dead cards in here. Wouldn't surprise me if he gets maybe the Blocker Law up to 8k or something similar, and just opts to restand the Law, try and just get more cards out of his hand. Now, Lamb is definitely going to be doing the math here. He can just slam the 9 cost next turn. He's going to opt to take this. I think this is, yeah, here we go. So the 8k coming in. Wouldn't surprise me if he bounces either the Dadan or the Nami. Oh, takes it. So this is really good news
Yeah.
for Ben here.
Yeah, I don't think Lamb has the 9 cost Whitebeard in hand.
Yeah, and he hasn't seen him search it. The odds are extremely low. He's shambled up the Nami. Surely you just slam the... Okay, he's playing it safe. And does he play out the beige, maybe? Let's find out. Yep, there we go.
Yep.
So
Sets
he's
up
setting
some
up
really
for a
good
defensive.
blockers.
And honestly, I think this game's out of Lamb's hands now. Unless he's got a mountain of event cards, I can't see how he's going to defend out of a big restand Law turn. And Lamb does know about the Rad Beam. There is one Don open. Ben's at 2 life. I just can't see him getting out of this.
Yeah, and I think Ben's going to do everything that he can to keep the 5 characters on the field. I think he'll use the combination of cards in hand and taking the life as opposed to blocking to keep all of those characters on the field and just allow more Don to be able to swing in twice with these 6k laws. But
I think that's what he's doing. He's kind of doing the math now. I think he's got to be mindful of a starter Luffy. So we see a block and a 1k,
yeah,
and that's definitely going through Ben's head now. Here comes the 8k, and here
we
comes the
see
block.
the 8k. Yep, dedicates one of those blockers to that.
Oh, look who's poking his head out, Ryan.
We saw this card get bottom decked twice in game 2, but now getting some value. Just a simple 6k swing.
Absolutely. And we've just like you said, a simple 6k swing, not opting to go to 7. Maybe trying to bait some more blocks out. So I have a feeling he might be out of 2ks.
Yeah.
Maybe he feels he can't win next turn, and there's the blocker. So good setup there from Lamb. This will definitely give him that chance. And I think his hand is still quite large, right? Like, look at that. Look at that. He's holding a book.
He's got some Don available for his event cards. And the 1 blocker available as well.
Absolutely. And look at that. We see the Otama come straight down. Ben's on board control. He'll definitely peck some damage away into Whitebeard this turn, but he wants to make sure there's no shenanigans coming with those starter Luffys.
Yeah, that's kind of his biggest threat at the moment, just being able to bypass any blockers that Ben does set up. So pretty comfortable to remove that one first. You know, you do have options to get the Atama back to hand. Doesn't feel as bad as opposed to other red decks where that card's effectively out of the game once it hits the field.
Absolutely. And I think the blocker really did shift the kind of dynamic of this game as well. So now you're going to see Ben crash in, probably keep one of the blocker laws back, Shambling up the Otama. We've got the restand. Here comes another probably 8k, surely, right? No, just
No, he's
passing.
just
So
gonna
he's
opt to leave
playing
it inactive. Yeah, he does want that block available.
definitely. And I think that was just a passing of the turn there. So setting up for another big
Does
turn
look like
now.
it.
Wouldn't surprise me if we see Otama. Oh, it's so hard because Lamb's actually done really well to establish this kind of board state. Maybe he hasn't passed. He's got that 2 Don active.
Yeah, it did seem
So
like it, but it looks like he's still going through his mind about what options Lamb could play on the next turn and whether the AK swing is valuable.
absolutely. And just working out like what is the most damage you can do. He is still sitting at 1 life, I believe, Ben, or is it no, because he let that one through earlier. So I'm pretty sure
Yeah,
he's only at 1
Ben's
life.
still got the one. Yep, and he thinks that he's got enough defensive cards that he can get through
Or is this a
without
Red
this
Hawk?
blocker, another AK swing,
No, it's guard point.
and
Okay.
gets the guard point. Yep. So that's one less event card that he has to worry about the following turn.
Exactly.
And Ben's
And
still got a
besides,
healthy hand.
absolutely. I mean, he knows about the Rad Beam. He knows the Rad Beam's online as well. Um, I
Mhm.
I actually kind of like that because he keeps up a big law for blocking purposes, and he can just Rad Beam out. Now the thing is, and I think we'll see this in the first attack, whether Ben thinks he's going to get another turn will depend on how he combos out here. So electing to take straight away, getting a Capone, so it's no use
Yep.
for him now. And honestly, next turn, depending on what Lamb plays here, it may not even be of use next turn as well.
Yeah. And we do see that there is another starter Luffy in Lamb's hand. But when
Mm,
your opponent's threatening 2 Don active and a pretty healthy hand, it feels pretty rough to be able to try and close out the game with that card. But we do see the ace come down. Marco just trying to clear some of these blockers.
absolutely, yeah. And succeeding in it too. So we've got one law off the table. It leaves a healthy 3 Don open for Lamb as well. That Don should be rested. Not sure why it's. Oh, it is rested? No, it's still inactive. Not sure why it hasn't rested that Don, but that's okay. And now we're going to see, again, Lamb
Yeah.
just able to develop such a big board. The payoff of those rush cards really kind of showing their force here. And, man, Ben looked in such control, but honestly, I'm putting it down to Lamb having that one blocker and just being unable to interact with it. And a
Now it's 2
second
blockers.
blocker. Oh, my goodness. The Otama's going to have to do some work
Yeah.
here. Robin's not going to help in the slightest. So I'm trying to think like what you target. You kind of almost have to target the ace here. But we could just see like you
Yeah, it's
knock
gonna be pretty difficult.
without some kind of neg effect on if he wants to clear board. That is, unless there's a clear neg here. I think yeah, Ben just has to go for life, and that looks like exactly what's happening. Thinking that he can get through with the cards on board and in hand, which I'll be honest, I'm not confident. He
Yeah,
has
with the
dwindled
2
the hand.
blockers.
He did dwindle his hand down a bit, but let's just see the sequencing here, right?
Yeah, and Lamb set up a really good board through the previous turns, keeping that
Mm.
Marco and that Thatch on the field, similar to what he did in game 2 as well, and just gotten a lot of value with those attacks.
And this is also like you see a lot of lists, run to Basil Hawkins. Well, this is exactly the setup that Ben would have wanted earlier. Basil Hawkins would make absolute mincemeat out of this earlier board when he only had the one blocker, but instead he's just had to kind of peck away with
Mhm.
the blocker laws, rely on some restanding. And now, due to that lack of pressure on his board, Lamb is starting to really gain control here. But let's see what this Bonnie grabs. Oh, that's
Finding
definitely
another
not
Bonnie.
ideal. That's not ideal. He definitely would have been looking for another blocker law, I reckon, there, unless he already has one.
Yeah.
Maybe a Hawkins, but because even Hawkins now is
Yeah, we
still
haven't
really,
seen
really good.
Ben Yeah, we haven't seen Ben play one throughout game 1 or game 2, so be interesting to see whether he does opt to play that card in his list.
Yeah, I'd be interested too. I feel with Whitebeard
I
just being so prevalent in the meta, you almost have to. Same with even some of the yellow decks if you want to clear their board. It's just such a good card that it's almost
mm,
just a mandatory. But you can see Ben going through the complex math right now. I don't think his hand is kind of it's kind of awkward in my opinion, and I think he is digging. I honestly think he's actually digging for that block of law, and you see him just slam it down there.
Yeah, he
That's what
does
he's been
find
looking
it.
for.
Okay,
I
yeah,
reckon. You'll definitely see Anami and Bonnie gets bounce back. I reckon for probably Beige and Law. Just um, try and survive another turn here, and try and get him on the crackback. But his board is just so developed. And here it is. Is he going to drop the Beige, or is he going to drop something else? Let's find out. Oh, he's thinking
he's moved
Robin
the
would actually be cheeky.
yeah, he's moved the Robin to the front, but do you have enough to get through the next
That's just it,
turn?
particularly at no life as well. And if a starter Luffy came down, oh, Zoro, and he's just going to don
Oh
up and
wow,
swing.
yeah,
I mean, Lamb's got to be
just
close to
another
smelling
6k
blood in the
attack.
water, right?
Yeah,
Oh, and
yep,
he, ooh,
and
I don't know if I'm Ben there. I kind of like the idea of leaving 2 Don up. I believe we know about the Rad Beam earlier off of Nami, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong there, but I'm pretty sure
mhm.
Ben does have that Rad Beam in hand, and you can see Lamb kind of going through the motions now. And here, obviously, 4 heavy hitters. You got Leader, Ace, Thatch, and Marco coming into the red zone with only 3 blockers. This is going to be an interesting one, right?
Yeah, we're
It's kind of
definitely going to see a lot of cards uh, come out of Ben's hand.
Absolutely. He's going to have to empty it pretty quick, and we see that snap block on the Ace first. Here comes an AK. There goes the Rad Beam, and he's out of Don. So this could
Mhm.
lead. I think he'll try and dwindle some cards here. He has to block, surely. You can't use cards in hand knowing there's a starter Luffy coming unless you know 100% you can survive. What's that going to be? 5 plus or 6 plus 5 is 11, an 11k swing. And I think that's what's going through Ben's mind right now. That if he did play that starter Luffy,
Yep.
can I actually combo out of it? But then
Mm.
again, you've
And
also got that 2
I
cards.
don't think Ben is aware of the starter Luffy. I don't think we've seen it get revealed off any searches, and we do know that the one was already played, but
And here we
we
go.
see here, yep, the second one come down, yeah, and it looks like Ben is ready to scoop, and that's it.
And I'm
Lamb
doing the
takes it.
math.
He comes back from a game 1 loss.
Absolutely. What a comeback from Lamb. Just setting up those Thatchers and the aces. And that's where Law can really struggle. If they can't remove them, they just take over the game. What I will say there for those at home probably going, well, why did Ben combo out there? I just ran the numbers in my head. So Ben had 5 cards in hand. All of them were 1,000 power. He knew that if he played the starter Luffy and put all the Don on him, he wouldn't live. He wouldn't live. And I think Lamb knew that he was probably, I
Yeah,
mean, he was probably comfortable behind the 2 blockers anyway, but I think he was just playing for his
yeah,
outs there and going, look, if he has this, I lose anyway. Let's just play this turn like this and see how it goes. So definitely, I don't think
yeah.
much of a misplay there from Ben. Just trying to play to his outs and trying to buy that other turn, hoping he didn't have the Luffy. And unfortunately, he did.
And that's just the way it is sometimes with these matchups, especially in the top 8. It is a shame to go down like that, but a great game nonetheless to take it to a best of 3. We will take a short break here while the rest of the top 8 finish up their matches, and we'll be back with the top 4.